Well, last night, Joe Biden and his nominee for Vice President, Kamala Harris, gave their first joint interview where they went after President Trump's response to COVID-19. Take a listen.
If you're sworn in come January, would you be prepared to shut this country down again?
I would be prepared to do whatever it takes to save lives, because we cannot get the country moving until we control the virus. That is the fundamental flaw of this administration's thinking to begin with. In order to keep the country running and moving and the economy growing and people employed, you have to fix the virus. You have to deal with the virus.
Well, if you're wondering if there's a softball crisis in America, it's because ABC used them all to throw them at Biden and Harris. All the softballs are now gone. But if you're listening to what Joe Biden says, it sounds like a contradictory message coming from the Democratic nominee, because he wants to talk about closing the economy and the virus. I mean, you can't really tell which side he's on, but David Muir certainly didn't ask him. Anyway, with us today in our company is Trump's senior legal advisor, Jenna Ellis, and constitutional attorney, Mark Smith. Guys, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. It sounds to me like Biden wants to have it both ways. He wants to talk about closing down the economy to make sure that we flatten the curve, get rid of COVID, but then he wants to blame Trump for the economy. He wants to have it both ways, Mark.
Yeah, I think the Biden-Harris ticket is in trouble because their message at the end of the day is really either incoherent and inconsistent on the one hand, or it omits critical facts that are really important to the American people. So you saw, we went through the entire Democratic National Convention, and they conveniently ignored the riots and mob violence in America's streets that everyone in America is talking about, everyone in America is seeing on TV, and everyone in America is going out and buying firearms and ammunition, record sales, and yet they ignored that elephant in the room. And I agree with you. Either their message is disjointed and inconsistent and inherently contradictory, or they simply are ignoring the issues that Americans care about.
Yeah. Jenna, it feels like he wants to talk about how he's going to get rid of COVID by shutting the economy down, and then wants to blame President Trump for the economy. I don't know how you can possibly do that and get away with it.
Well, he's only getting away with it because the media, as you pointed out, aren't asking him the critical questions, and they're not pushing back. Joe Biden said in his interview that if President Trump had just instituted his restrictions even 2 weeks earlier, it would have saved 37,000 lives. But what he forgets to say, and what wasn't pushed back on, is the fact that the White House coronavirus 2 weeks to stop the spread came out on March 13th. 2 weeks before that, March 2nd, Joe Biden was still holding rallies. He was holding rallies through March 10th. So his own campaign didn't even try to implement the restrictions that somehow now, after the fact, with 2020 vision, which is kind of funny that we're saying that in 2020, but now he's trying to say after the fact he would have done something that he himself wasn't even doing. And every single point that he's trying to say President Trump should have done or that he would do to combat the virus is already what President Trump did ahead of schedule and ahead of Joe Biden, even weeks, days, and months in advance of Joe Biden even suggesting it. So you're right. Biden is trying to have his cake and eat it too by saying that Trump didn't do the things that he did. He would have done them differently, and somehow still saying shut down the economy while blaming President Trump for shutting down the economy. So it's ridiculous, it's hypocritical, and media needs to push back.
Yeah, media does need to push back, but they probably won't, because, one of the big questions that we've been asking this week is, will the RNC get covered the same way the DNC got covered last week? We're going to have to wait and see. But if this headline is any news of what's going to happen, it's a big no. This headline: what TV networks should do if lies are told at the Republican convention. I want to play a soundbite from Brian Stelter yesterday, what he has to say.
And what we are going to see in the next few days is a truth imbalance. Because if we've learned anything from the Trump years, it's that there's a real likelihood, there's a real forecast of lies coming fast and furious from the president and, sadly, from many of his allies.
This sounds really familiar, what I heard last week from Brian Stelter. Not. You didn't hear this at all, Mark. I mean, this is pretty concerning when you have someone pretty much trying to foreshadow that we're going to hear lies from the president all week and give these networks an out to pull away and not show the whole convention.
Yeah, and I think you see that Americans recognize that the mainstream media is just in the hip pocket of the Democrats. And that, if you look at poll after poll, Americans recognize this and they admit, they say, look, we think the mainstream media is essentially biased and doesn't have the credibility that perhaps it once did in the era of Walter Cronkite. So the more that the CNNs and the other members of the mainstream media say things like this, that we're going to fact check the president, it actually just reaffirms what people already think and what the president already says, which is that the media has a cheering interest in Donald Trump losing the election of 2016 and again in 2020. But I think Americans are smart enough to see through that. They certainly saw through it in 2016, and the evidence is more overwhelming now than then. So I think the Americans are going to continue to see through this. And if the mainstream media decides to fact check, the president in the middle of, these speeches at the RNC, it's just going to add further evidence to what Americans are already thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Jenna, I literally have 10 seconds left. Are you guys going to counter to fact check the fact checks? Is that your plan, or what are you guys going to do?
Oh, 100%. Follow Team Trump and Trump War Room to make sure that you see all of that. And I would just add that if Brian Stelter is really concerned about lying, then just shut down CNN for a week and we'll all be fine.
Okay, thank you, guys. Appreciate you all joining us. We got a big show for you tomorrow. We're going to talk to co-chair of the Republican National Committee, Tommy Hicks, congressional candidate Sean Parnell, both of whom are speaking tonight. Plus, Mike Pence's chief of staff, Mark Short, will be here. We're also going to talk to Arizona Senator Martha McCalley, pro-life leader Marjorie Densfelder, and Trump supporter and model Elizabeth Pipko, all here to break down night one.
All right, make sure you tune in to Spicer and Company for all your RNC coverage. We're going to break it down here tomorrow, like Sean mentioned. That's our show. Greg Kelly Reports is up next.
Stay with Newmax tonight to watch it all. Thanks for being part of our company. We'll see you tomorrow.